I was truly in love with her, and I knew the easiest way to every woman's heart was her son. So each time I saw the kid passing by, I always offered him gifts. My boy called me Uncle Lon, as most lads called me. The first time I gave him oranges, sometimes I gave him biscuits, and what all kids cherished. I never knew he was singing my name to his mother each time I gave him gifts. I was his father and had more affection for him, though he never knew he was the fruit of my past atrocities. It was not only because I could not have a child, but blood was thicker than water. If his mother knew I was the rapist who raped her and Asheri was the fruit of that abomination, she would have stopped him from coming close to me. My friends who I ganged up with to commit the act were no longer in the village. I learned one of them was in jail and the other was of late. Both ganged up and harassed a rich trader in an attempt to steal money from him. The trader managed to escape and alerted the villagers. One of them narrowly escaped and the unlucky one was captured and tortured to death. The other one, called Toba, was later arrested and sent to prison. One day at the Tobin market, someone held my hands. Uncle Lon. Asheri, what are you doing here? I am with my mother, he notified, introducing me with enthusiasm. Mama, this is Uncle Lon, who always buys things for me. Then the mother walked closer, and I pretended not to know her, but she was shocked. Fanlong. Are you his mother? Yes. Asheri, you never told me your mother was a beautiful and familiar face. I couldn't pretend any longer. Eula, is this you? Yes, I am the one. I hugged her, my feelings for her had not changed. Mama, do you know Uncle Lon? Yes, Asheri, he was my friend. Mama, I like him. Then the mother grinned. But you disappeared. She added, and I knew I might have disguised to have my way with her, and maybe she was just playing the usual girl thing of not acting too cheap back then, but truly liked me. I didn't disappear, you were the one who denied me. You were keeping bad company and my parents warned me against you. I thought you were still going to come back. I went to the university. You are now a big man. Which big man? I am still Fanlong. What happened to your school? I dropped out due to the unwanted pregnancy. I had no choice. Are you married? No one wants to marry me. Why? You cannot understand. Do you know, I still love you, I never stopped loving you. When you will hear my story, you will hate me. Then she left immediately. Please wait. But she walked away and didn't look back. I felt so bad for being the cause of our predicament. I had to fix it, I had to pay the reparations for my sins. The next day I went to her house in the absence of our son and sat with her in the fireside kitchen. Then, after speaking sweet words to her, all that matters to me is that I still love you. Just tell me you still love me. Do you still love me? She proclaimed too. I still have feelings for you, though I hate men. Can we be friends? Can we start back from where we ended? There is a problem. She was worried, I pretended, though I could guess what was her burden. Tell me, what is the problem? It is a long and sad story. She was saddened and her eyes became wet. Please, I am ready to hear that story and I promise it will change nothing. Do you know why I hate men? No. They will mess up your life after singing new songs of love for you. The moment they learnt what happened to you caused by one of them, they flee away with their unfulfilled promises. I am not like other men you encountered, I am different. Tell me your story, I want to share mine with you. Then she recounted the story with a familiar beginning. I knew I was one of the main characters. My conscience damned me as I listened to her. I remember clearly, on my way to the stream, 3 masked boys hijacked and carried me to the bush. 2 of them grabbed me, while one of them had his way with me, with a dagger on my throat. When I found out 2 months later that I was pregnant, my parents almost disowned me, even when I told them the truth. They said if I didn't show the man responsible for my pregnancy, they were going to forget about me. Then they stopped sending me to school. Later, rumors circulated that the rapist was Ubangi, but my parents denied during Ashari's birth that my child never looked like him. I really wanted to see the face of this notorious criminal, to know how he looked like. I thought he was probably huge and robust because his name terrified the entire village. The day I heard he was arrested and was going to court, I had to be there to witness his trial. I really wanted to know if he was the one. But when I saw Ubangi, he was a skinny fellow who could be blown by the wind. Immediately I saw him, I knew he was not the rapist, but thought it could still be one of his gang members. I even wished it was never one of them. 2 years later, I was turned down by 2 suitors because they learned I was raped by Ubangi. The last one was ready to pay my bride price when he suddenly changed his mind, worried that my child was the fruit of a notorious criminal. The villagers believed that a bad tree could never bear good fruits and my son Ashari was going to be like his father. No one was ready to adopt him or be his stepfather. His parents never accorded our marriage. I already had a child and more to that, he was the son of Ubangi. That is why I am a single mother. I know it is not right to curse the father of my son, but wherever and whoever he is, he will never find peace with his manhood. God is my witness and judge. Calm down, I know I was instigated in the past by youthful enthusiasm. I never stopped loving you and wished to spend the rest of my life with you. That was my promise to her. Do you want to marry her because you need to be a father or because you love her? When I was young, I was full of ego and pride. Instead of trying to calm down my youthful thoughts, I allowed them to control me. Are you trying to tell me that what you felt for her was lust? Bandin tendered his worry and I tried to clarify. I followed her because I loved her, but when I saw her nudity at the pool, I allowed my unclean thoughts to take control of my mind. You are unable to impregnate a woman and is running back to your past because your sins bear fruits of the womb. You are doing this because you don't want to be childless, right? I have so many reasons that took me back to my past, like you just said, my past is still here with me. I cannot run away from it. My son needs a father, her mother needs a man, I still love her dearly and marrying her will make up for what I made her go through. A few days later, I was walking to the farm with Eula. She needed someone to clear the bush for her to plant huckleberry and pumpkins. So I opted to help. It was the right time to prove my seriousness. On our way I felt like we had known each other for long. Are you not ashamed of walking with me? Eula teased me and made me perplexed. Why should I be ashamed of the woman I love? The same woman you claim to love is a laughingstock in this village. Have you ever seen my son with his peers? No. This is because everyone feels the blood of his father runs in his veins and is bad influence. You are the only man that have ever strode with me. Most men have a brief talk with me. Why are you treated like an outcast? One of the reasons is because I am HIV positive. My heart throbbed hearing her utterances. I was not sure, but my heart was trembling. If Yola was HIV positive and still there was no symbol of the blight, then it was probably an illusion. So I decided to find out if she was truly infected with AIDS. When Ubangi died in prison, it was reported he was also diagnosed with the HIV virus. I was already 2 months pregnant and the doctor took the necessary measures to make sure I didn't transmit the virus to my son. I was advised to do the AIDS screening test when the pregnancy was 4 months. It could only be clearly proven 3 months after the intercourse with the infected person. I was scared to find out, because his gang members also had the virus too. When my son was 7 months, I stopped breastfeeding him and he was tested negative. That is why I wished it was not Ubangi who raped me. Have you ever been sick, seriously sick or proven otherwise? No. If I am not HIV positive, you are not. I told her, but she was still short-sighted to comprehend. What do you mean by that? I just want to tell you how much I love you. I suck because I am sick. You are not sick. Stop pretending, she claimed and added. I know you are saying this because you are still here with me. When you get back home, you will change your mind. I stayed beside her throughout in the farm. Even when she saw a green snake and took off on her feet. I hugged her and calmed her down. When I returned with her home and sat with Ashley for a while before leaving, I saw the look in her eyes. She was afraid it was the last time she was going to see me. When I got home, my parents were worried. My son, where were you from morning to even fall? You left at twilight and now it is almost dusk. I was with the woman I want to marry. That is good news. My parents were excited to meet the girl I wanted to be my wife. My parents, Mr. and Mrs. Shulika, were very glad that their son, they thought was never going to be responsible, had ended up being a man. They were agog to know who was the maiden and wanted to know. So when are you going to bring her home? It will not be long, Mama. The following day at noon, while I was inside the parlor in our mud brick house, I heard a familiar voice knocking. I was so tired, due to the farm work I did for Eula. It had been long I ever went to the farm. As I was still pondering to guess whose voice was it, I heard my mom. Eula, how are you? I am fine, Mama. This one you are here today, are your huckleberry leaves ready for sale? No, Mama, I came here to see Fanlon. Do you know my son? Before she could stop mumbling trying to respond to my mom, I was standing there. He helped me yesterday in the farm, so Hello, Eula. I interjected and she said. Hi, I brought you food. She handed a basket with a dish inside. Come in. My mother gave her a hateful look and she took an excuse. No, I have to hurry up, my son is alone at home. Okay, let me see you off. Fanlon, please don't go far, I need you to help me. My mother uttered. I understood she didn't like my company with Eula when I returned after a short while. I opened the food, it was pounded potatoes and beans. There was even a ripe pear in the basket. I sliced the pear and started swallowing the luscious delicacy, then my mother got in. You are already back. Mama, the food is so delicious. I hope you only like her food, not her hips. She is the one I told you, Mama, I wish to be my wife. God forbid, out of all the innocent beautiful girls in this village. Thank God you are still wishing for. Is there any problem if I like her, Mama? She is not good for you, my son. She already has a child out of wedlock. The father of her son died of AIDS and please, no reasonable mother would like her son to marry a girl that will bring him bad luck. What if she was your daughter, Mama? But she is not your sister, are you marrying her out of pity? No, Mama, I love her. Why should it be you, my son? How can you go on a blind date? Out of all the promising young girls in this village, you decided to choose a rejected and retired village champion. Was it her fault that she was raped, Mama? If she was a bad girl, she would have aborted that child. Do you mean that bastard, his father was Ubangi? Pronouncing his name is mentioning the devil in person. Do you really know who was Ubangi? Is it why the innocent boy and his mother are treated like outcasts? Go ahead and marry her. I will not be part of it. Mama, I thought you would be less of my problems. I love her and there is more to it that you cannot understand. Then make me understand. Despite the fact that I love her, she is the reason I am a transformed man. That girl made me the man I am today. How did she do that? Do you know why I never returned to this village and why I was determined to be successful? Tell me, my son. I wanted to make up for all the atrocities I had caused in this village. I wanted to make you proud, Mama. Despite the way your friends laughed at you because of my stubbornness. You are beating around the bush. What exactly did this girl do that changed you? I was corrupted by friends and my arrogance. When I hurt her and left this village, my conscience killed my arrogance. And my friends part ways with me. My son, are you sure she is the one? I am not only sure she is the one. Then we need your father's confirmation. I thought my father was going to be the main problem, but after listening to me, he asked, my son, Father, are you doing this out of the love for her, pity, or because you are already a man and man enough to know what you want? I knew my father very well. In such radical situations in life, he had his way of unwrapping the hidden truth in our inner thoughts. My response had to be mature enough. I am man enough to know what I want. So what do you want? I want to marry Eula. I will give you my blessings. What? My mother was surprised and interrupted. How can you accept our son to marry her? Marriage is not when we fall in love and feel we cannot do without that person. Marriage is when we are man enough to know who we want to get married to despite the person's shortcomings. Even if we are doing it because we love that person, it should be centered on a responsible act and readiness to face the consequences ourselves. My husband, you cannot just accept Fanlon to marry her. She is not worth it. Go ahead and stop him, and face the consequences in the future. Let him be responsible for his choice. The Bible says, he that finds a wife, finds a good thing and obtain favor from God. But God cannot allow our soul to marry a wife that is not good for him. God doesn't choose our wives, no, we chose the spouses to our children. Allow them to choose and we bless them. What if they make a wrong choice? Are you then the one who is going to make the right choices for them? Neither is God. That girl is just a victim of circumstances. Let her be. From that day I thought my father was too hard on me in the past, but he was just building me to a man when I was young. He used to scold and flog severely. I struggled and couldn't tell her the truth. Though my parents were reluctant, I finally paid her bride price and made her my wife. Unfortunately, my son kept reminding me of my atrocious past because he was the fruit of my sin, but I decided to stay quiet and make my wife happy. I didn't want to rekindle the wounds of the past, especially as she was becoming happy. The reason I married her was the fact that I convinced her to carry on another HIV test because it was her assumption that made her believe if Ubani died of HIV, then she was surely infected when he raped her. She was so happy when the results were negative and called me her hero, not knowing I was the one responsible for the actions. My guilt was like a cankerworm chopping my heart till one day, one of my friends I used to commit atrocities with returned from jail and I knew my past was with me again. His name was Toba. My past had caught up again with me. What was Toba doing at my house in the village? I didn't believe. He came looking for me. My wife had found solace in me and her son was the fruit of my evil deed. Toba was probably going to remind her. Maybe telling her, I paid the dowry of a rapist on her head. The look on his face didn't look pleasant at all, it reminded me of the past. Though the fruit of evil was Ashri, no one was aware he was my son. Sometimes you hate some faces because they will surely remind you of the past, even if they don't betray you. Some deeds are meant to be left in their past. They will only bring more harm than good. The reason some villagers keep some people in their past is because they are black legs whose leg stamped footprints that were long forgotten. Toba, you don't look like it is our old friendship that brought you to my house. I learned you are married to her. Yes, I am married. When it was time to molest her, you pleaded on me to gang up with you. When it was time to marry her, I was forgotten in prison. Toba was not sounding sane to me, he was dragging me to the past. Please, forget those days of our juvenile delinquency. It was just puberty. I tried to calm his nerves, but it was like I vexed him more. You initiated me to smoking Hamlon, you taught me how to steal and you begged me to gang up with you and we did gruesome things. Then you abandoned me in the past and secured your future. Please, stop accusing me. I am not responsible for your fate. You deceived me, left me in the village. I followed the path you showed me and ended up in prison. Toba, stop accusing me. I am not accusing you, I am just telling you the truth. I ended up in prison. My future was ruined by you, you lured me into this. But look at you, you are happily married. He was right, I convinced him to commit crimes with me and others, later repented and he ended up in jail. Toba was blaming me for his fate. If he ended up in doom, it was not only due to my fault. I felt bad when he accused me. It is true I was the bad influence around him and our late friend, but I left the village when we were still teenagers and he was still here pointing fingers at me. That is why some friends who introduced us to mishap listened to their elders or to the conscience and became changed men, while their friends ended up in the very infant pleasantry and died young. Sometimes the fly does not only follow the corpse to the grave because they doesn't listen to advice but because they follow the crowd to perdition, while their friends left, they stayed in the dark. As for me, it was my guilty conscience that changed me. I had pet the girl I fell in love with. She was my first love, love at first sight and the very spark that kept me alive. I had to face him before it was too late. Toba, what really do you want? Now you are talking, settle me. What for? Am I indebted to you? I went to prison because you initiated me to crime, you never cared visiting me in prison. I only learned you were in prison and our friend dead when I returned to the village. But you discarded me in prison like a rotten potato. He was furious and Indian ham was stinking all over him. I had to be crafty. How do I settle you? I need enough money to start up my life. I need much money. How much do you need? I can give you some money. I need 1,000,000 francs. What? Are you out of your mind? How can you ask a madman if he is out of his sense? Do I look like I am on my right mind? If you don't give me the money, I am going to tell your wife everything. What will you tell my wife which she don't know? That you raped her, and her boy is your son. You cannot burst into my house and try to bring the long-forgotten past. Please, I will give you money to take care of yourself, but I don't have 1,000,000 francs. Then have your wife to contend with. Stop it, Toba, you cannot tell my wife everything. Then settle me, I give you 1 week. It didn't seem to be joking as he stood up and left without looking back. I couldn't finish this episode cause I was busy and because our reactions and shares have become so low and I feel bored to continue the story. Let me see if you will change for me to continue this story today. Do something. I ended up telling my wife the truth and she was furious and heartbroken. She even left home with our son and called me a rapist. She promised to report me to the police. I begged her on my knees and cried before her. I told her I was still young and stupid when I raped her wearing a mask. She reminded me how much she suffered and the wounds in her heart I tried to heal became fresh. My marriage was crumbling because her feelings for me were soured. She no longer desired me and the memories of what I did to her tormented her anytime I wanted to make love to her. Instead of love she hated me and I could see how much I irritated her. I regretted ever getting married to her because she never made me happy again. But one day I told her I was going to report myself to the police because I preferred the prison than such a marriage and she told me, "That is the right place you belong because I only see you raping me each time you make love to me. Don't blame me, it's not my fault." I endured in the marriage even when she gave birth to another child. I even sent our first son abroad to put away the memories of my past, but I was still entrapped in the past by my sins that haunted her and made her hate me. I lived like that. I prayed to die quick because I was never happy. Let us never allow our youthful urge to override our self-control and sense of reason. If we don't live to regret in future or suffer for it, we will end up in prison or in hell. Like and subscribe for more stories like this in the future.